in just 41 seconds. A leaked audio recording would end the most controversial Attorney General nomination in modern history. Jasmine Crockett didn't smile when she pressed play on her tablet during Pam Bondi's confirmation hearing. She didn't need to. The audio spoke for itself, revealing conversations that would destroy Bondi's legal career forever. The look on the nominee's face when her own voice filled the Senate chamber said everything about the difference between public promises and private corruption. What did that audio recording reveal that made Pam Bondi look like she wanted to disappear through the floor? At exactly 10:43 a.m. on February 6, 2025, the Senate Judiciary Committee chamber buzzed with confirmation hearing tension, mahogany panels gleaming under harsh television lights, 32 cameras positioned to capture every uncomfortable moment as senators questioned Trump's most controversial cabinet pick. The air crackled with partisan electricity and barely contained anticipation. Jasmine Crockett walked into the hearing room like a prosecutor who'd spent months building an airtight case. Navy blazer pressed to courtroom perfection, legal folders arranged by devastating importance. Small tablet computer positioned with surgical precision. Her expression was calm, controlled, deadly. She carried herself like someone who possessed information that could change history. Pam Bondi sat at the witness table like a former prosecutor, carved from Florida, confidence and political ambition, blonde hair styled for television, flag pin gleaming. She shuffled through prepared talking points with the assurance of someone who'd survived political storms before. Her practiced smile suggested she was ready for another day of partisan theater, confident that Republican senators would protect her from serious scrutiny. But today would shatter every assumption about political protection and confirmation theater. 3 mysteries hung in the committee room. Air like gathering storm clouds, the sealed envelope on Crockett's desk, the unusual silence from Bondi's usual media defenders, and the cryptic morning headlines about explosive revelations that major news outlets had only hinted at. The hearing began with Chairman Dick Durbin's opening remarks about the importance of confirming qualified nominees who would uphold the rule of law. Standard confirmation rhetoric. Republican senators launched into softball questions about prosecutorial experience and commitment to justice. Everything proceeded exactly as Bondi's confirmation team had scripted, until Crockett's turn arrived. "Miss Bondi, thank you for your willingness to serve," she began, her voice steady as a heartbeat. "I'd like to discuss your commitment to ethical law enforcement and transparent governance." Bondi nodded confidently. She'd prepared for ethics questions. "Excellent. Then you can explain your relationship with certain private clients during your tenure as Florida Attorney General." The temperature in the room shifted immediately. "I'm not sure I understand the question, Senator," Bondi replied, though her smile flickered slightly. Crockett opened her folder, revealing not legal documents but a small tablet computer. "Ms. Bondi, during your time as Florida's chief law enforcement officer, did you ever coordinate with private individuals to influence ongoing investigations?" "Absolutely not. That would be completely inappropriate." "I see. And you never accepted payments or favors in exchange for prosecutorial decisions?" "Never. I've always maintained the highest ethical standards." Crockett's expression remained perfectly neutral. "That's interesting, because I have audio evidence that suggests otherwise." She held up the tablet. "This is a recorded conversation between you and an unknown male voice, obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request filed by investigative journalists. The conversation took place on March 15. Bondi's face went completely white. "I'd like the committee to hear what Florida's Attorney General was discussing with private parties during an active investigation." Chairman Durbin leaned forward. "Senator Crockett, if you have evidence relevant to this confirmation." "I do, Mr. Chairman, and I believe the American people deserve to hear it." She pressed play. The audio quality was crystal clear. Bondi's voice was unmistakable. "Bondi, the investigation can be delayed indefinitely. My office controls the timeline." Unenium voice. "And the payment?" "Bondi, offshore account, as discussed, $2.1 million upon closure." Unenium voice. "What about federal oversight?" "Bondi, not an issue. I have contacts who can redirect attention elsewhere." The recording stopped. The silence that followed was deafening. Every senator sat frozen. Republican members looked like they'd been struck by lightning. Democratic members tried to process what they'd just heard. Camera operators zoomed in on Bondi's face, capturing the exact moment her political career died. "Miss Bondi," Crockett said, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade, "would you like to explain to this committee why Florida's Attorney General was discussing payments for influencing investigations?" Bondi's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Her lawyer leaned over to whisper, urgently in her ear, That recording this is clearly taken out of context." "Which part is out of context? The $2.1 million payment? Or your promise to delay investigations?" "I never accepted any improper payments." Crockett reached for another document. "That's curious, because Treasury Department records show a wire transfer of exactly $2.1 million to an account registered under Sunshine Legal Consulting on March 22, 2019. You're listed as the sole beneficiary." The committee room erupted in controlled chaos. Republican senators demanded points of order. Democratic members called for immediate suspension of the hearing. Reporters frantically typed breaking news alerts. But through the chaos, Crockett's voice remained steady as a metronome. "The American people deserve an attorney general who enforces the law, not someone who sells it to the highest bidder." 41 seconds. That's how long it took from the audio's first word to Bondi's complete destruction. Within minutes, and Bondi audio was trending on Twitter. The recording went viral across all platforms. Cable news networks interrupted regular programming for wall-to-wall coverage of the most explosive confirmation hearing in decades. CNN's Wolf Blitzer led with, "Bombshell audio rocks Attorney General confirmation as Senate hears alleged corruption conversations." MSNBC's Rachel Maddow tweeted, "This isn't just disqualifying, this is potentially criminal. The FBI needs to investigate immediately." Even Fox News struggled to defend Bondi. Their legal analysts went conspicuously silent. Several hosts began distancing themselves from her nomination without explanation. The afternoon brought a cascade of revelations that buried Bondi's nomination completely. The Miami Herald published emails showing Bondi's office had indeed delayed multiple investigations involving her private clients. The Tampa Bay Times revealed a pattern of prosecutorial decisions that financially benefited her personal associates. Most damaging was the testimony from former staffers in Bondi's office, who came forward after the audio's release to describe a culture of corruption where prosecutorial decisions were routinely influenced by political and financial considerations. One former prosecutor, speaking anonymously to the Washington Post, said, "We all knew something was wrong, but we were afraid to speak up." Pam made it clear that loyalty meant looking the other way. By evening, Pam Bondi's Attorney General nomination was effectively dead. 7 Republican senators announced they could not support her confirmation. Senator Susan Collins called the audio deeply troubling and disqualifying. Senator Mitt Romney described it as evidence of conduct fundamentally incompatible with the office of Attorney General. Most significantly, Senate Majority Leader John Thune released a statement saying he would not schedule a confirmation vote until all questions raised by today's revelations have been thoroughly investigated. Bondi's response came at 7 p.m. through a hastily arranged press conference outside her Florida law office. Under harsh lights, looking aged beyond her years, she appeared broken and defeated. The audio played today was selectively edited and taken completely out of context, she said, her voice shaking. "I have always conducted myself with the highest ethical standards." But her usual confidence was gone. Her talking points felt rehearsed and desperate. The woman who had built her career on aggressive prosecution now looked like someone who needed a good defense attorney. Meanwhile, Crockett appeared on Anderson Cooper 360, looking exactly as composed as she had during the hearing. "Anderson, this isn't about politics," she said, her voice steady and measured. "It's about integrity. The Attorney General is America's chief law enforcement officer. They cannot be someone who has sold prosecutorial decisions for personal gain." How did you obtain this audio recording? Through legitimate oversight channels. Investigative journalists filed FOIA requests, and this material was part of official state communications. Everything was obtained legally and transparently. Cooper leaned forward. What's your response to claims that the audio was edited or taken out of context? Crockett's slight smile could have cut glass. The full recording is 4 minutes long. We can play all of it if Miss Bondi prefers. I don't think that would help her case. The interview clip garnered 12 million views within hours. 2 days later, the final blow came from an unexpected source, Donald Trump himself. Facing mounting pressure from Republican senators and devastating media coverage, Trump announced on Truth Social that Bondi had decided to withdraw her name from consideration to spend more time with family and return to private practice. The withdrawal statement was remarkably brief, mentioning nothing about the audio evidence or corruption allegations. Bondi's political career ended not with explanation or defense, but with silence and retreat. 3 weeks later, federal prosecutors in Florida announced a criminal investigation into Bondi's conduct as Attorney General. The case was built largely on the audio evidence Crockett had presented during that February hearing. The investigation revealed a pattern of corruption extending far beyond the single recorded conversation. Bank records showed multiple suspicious payments to accounts controlled by Bondi. Internal emails revealed systematic coordination between her office and private interests, seeking favorable prosecutorial treatment. 6 months later, Pam Bondi was indicted on charges of bribery, conspiracy, and violation of public trust. The lead prosecutor noted that without the February audio revelation, the investigation might never have begun. During her eventual sentencing hearing, the federal judge made a point that resonated far beyond the Miami courtroom. Ms. Bondi, you swore an oath to uphold justice, not auction it to the highest bidder. Your betrayal of public trust strikes at the foundation of our legal system. Jasmine Crockett, meanwhile, became a national symbol of effective congressional oversight. Her methodical destruction of Bondi's nomination was studied in law schools and political science programs as a masterclass in evidence-based accountability. The moment also established new standards for cabinet confirmation hearings. Senators began demanding more comprehensive background investigations and document production. The Bondi standard became shorthand for the level of scrutiny required for high-level law enforcement positions. But perhaps the most significant impact was on public trust in the confirmation process itself. Crockett's presentation demonstrated that vigorous oversight could still function, that evidence could still matter, and that accountability was still possible in American politics. During a quiet interview with The Atlantic 6 months later, Crockett reflected on that February afternoon that changed everything. People ask if I planned to destroy Pam Bondi's career that day, she said, sitting in her Capitol Hill office. The truth is, she destroyed her own career the moment she decided to sell prosecutorial decisions for personal profit. She paused, looking at the framed copy of the Constitution on her wall. I just made sure the American people found out about it. That's what oversight is supposed to do: shine light in dark places and hold power accountable to the people it serves. The lasting impact of those 41 seconds continued to reshape expectations for public service. Ethics training programs began using the Bondi case as an example of how corruption undermines democratic institutions. Law enforcement agencies implemented new protocols to prevent political interference in prosecutorial decisions. Most importantly, it reminded Americans that accountability was still possible, that evidence could still matter, and that some people in government were still willing to ask hard questions and demand honest answers. The audio recording also sparked broader conversations about transparency in law enforcement and the need for independent oversight of prosecutorial decisions. Several states implemented new ethics requirements for attorneys general, directly citing the Bondi case as justification for stronger accountability measures. Justice doesn't always wear a robe or carry a gavel. Sometimes, it walks into a confirmation hearing with a tablet computer and 41 seconds of truth that changes everything. What happens when corruption meets accountability? What happens when private conversations become public evidence? What happens when someone finally plays the tape that everyone hoped would stay hidden? The answer was written in 41 seconds. That ended a career and reminded America that some things still matter. If this story inspired you, don't just scroll, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Here, truth doesn't knock. It enters with evidence and leaves with justice. What's the most explosive leaked audio you've ever heard in politics? Drop it below.